Hi, Miss Schwab and Miss Parks class. My name is Kelly Guzman, and I work at the VA hospital. The VA hospital is a special place that veterans go, and veterans are people that help serve and protect our country. Those people may be in the Army or the Navy or the military, and maybe you have parents or grandparents that have served in one of those and they're considered veterans. So when they need help and they need to go to the doctor, they go to the VA hospital. So that is where I work, and I work in a neurology laboratory there. I am a laboratory manager and a microscopist, and we help learn about how people's brains heal after they get injured, or how we could help them not get injured in the first place. So we study the brain. That's what the study of neurology is. And I love working at the VA. I love what I do. So I love science. And I knew that I loved science from an early age. When I was in middle school, when I was in sixth grade, I found fish really cool. And I had a saltwater aquarium. How many of you have aquariums? You might have fish. You might have like lizards or like a terrarium that has frogs, things like that. I loved animals. And so I had this saltwater aquarium, and I had a lot of fish and a lot of corals and crabs. I thought those were the coolest things. And I loved researching how to make their aquarium a happy place for them to live. And not just a happy place for them to live, but a good environment. And I totally invested myself in this aquarium. That is what made me happy. And I learned after having those animals that I just really liked science. I asked a lot of questions. I wanted to know why the fish ate certain food. I wanted to know why water quality was important for the fish and why they would die. Or I just was really curious about marine biology. That's like the study of the ocean inhabitants, the ocean animals and the fish. And so my love for science started there. For you guys that like science, you might not even know it, but I loved research, which is discovering answers for new questions. So when I had questions like, what kind of food does this fish eat? I would go onto Google and I would ask that question and I would find that answer, because that answer exists out there on the internet, or it exists in a book. And I loved finding answers to my questions. So that's how I knew that I would really probably like a career in research. So one of your questions that someone there in class asked, for example, is when you have a question, you go find an answer to it if someone has an answer. So one of your questions is, why is your brain red? And that's a good question. If you look at a person's brain, inside there, under your hair and under your skull, your brain is red. And it's because of the blood that's within your brain. It's red because of the hemoglobin. The hemoglobin is a protein that when you breathe in and you have air go down into your lungs, hemoglobin is there in your bloodstream, and it joins with the oxygen that you breathe in, and it partners with it and like takes it on a little ride throughout your body and takes it to where it needs to go. And that oxygen needs to go to all the organs in your body, including your brain. It's very important to keep all the oxygen flowing to your brain. That keeps you functioning. Your brain keeps you talking. Your brain keeps you awake. It keeps you interacting with your environment. Your brain is why you can walk and talk and communicate, and you have all your senses. You can smell, you can touch things, you can hear things. It's all processed through your brain. So I love asking questions and I love finding answers. And for a lot of things, like that question, why is your brain red? We know that answer, and you can find that online or you can find it in a book. But for some questions that you have, you might not be able to find an answer. And if that's the case, then you should come up with an experiment to answer your question. And that is what I do in the neurology laboratory at the VA hospital. So, for example, if we want to do an experiment, first we have to put on our thinking cap. So this thinking cap is what you guys might be putting together in class today. And this thinking cap shows you all the parts of your brain. Well, some of them. Some of the important parts of your brain. Not everything, because there's a lot on the inside of your brain you do not see here. And a lot of the things inside your brain are very important for your memory and for your function. But these are some of the main parts. And so in the front, you have the frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe is very important for like your creativity and your music, if you like singing and dancing, or art, if you like drawing, and helps you put together big ideas, like you can understand problems and come up with a solution. A lot of your frontal lobe is what you use a lot more when you're an adult too. It helps you put together your reasoning skills for making decisions. You also have in green your motor cortex, which helps control your body. So like the right side of your brain controls the left side of your body, and the left side of your brain controls the right side of your body. You have this sensory cortex, and that's part of all your processing for like all your feelings and your parts of your body, your legs and your arms and your elbows and your fingers and everything. They're in the sensory cortex. Then you have the parietal lobe, and there you'll understand your area and space, maybe how far away you are from somebody else if you're too close and you're not in the bubble, or you're away and you're outside of their bubble. So the sensory cortex also plays a part in that, because you need to know if you can touch that person or not. The occipital lobe here in purple plays a role in what you see in processing your sight and knowing that you're looking at something. You're looking at your teacher, you're looking at your paper, you're looking at whatever, somebody else. That's part of the processing for your eyes. Then you have the temporal lobe here on this side that plays a part of your hearing and interpreting maybe how people look when you're looking at them. If you can tell that they're sad or happy, you tell by what's going on their face and their emotions. It also helps process your smell and your rhythm of speech. If you're like talking really fast or really slow, or also interpreting how other people are talking. Then you have the cerebellum in the back. That's your balance and your muscle memory. So this is a good idea of what your brain looks like with all these little folds underneath this, underneath your skull. That's what the hard part is here. You have this brain that weighs approximately 3 pounds when it's fully grown, full-sized. All of these are very important parts in how you are yourself. The things that you like, how you process things, how you talk, the languages that you might speak, or the things that you do, or learning how you write your name, or ride your bike. All these things, all these parts of your brain are very important in learning that and helping you do that as you get older, learning new things. So these are some of the important parts of the brain. And the folds that you see here, if you were to like look at a person's real brain, it obviously wouldn't have all these words on it. This is just to help you see the different parts of the brain. But these folds here, they are on people's real brains, and you can see them folded, and it's important because that's what makes us special as humans. So some animals have smooth brains, like they don't have these little wrinkles and these little folds, but we have folds on our brains, and it actually makes our cortex, this outer part of the brain here, the whole outside part of the brain, makes it a lot more dense. That means that it can fit more in the brain because it's folded than if it were just smooth and not folded at all. So I'm going to show you what a smooth brain looks like, and you won't see any of these folds. Here is the laboratory space that I work in. It's called a laboratory because this is where people work and conduct their research. This is the bay that I work in. And what I'm currently doing right now is looking at the brains that we've collected from some mice. So here you can see one mouse brain, and actually the part in front, that's towards the nose. This is the cortex, and the back is the cerebellum. And the cortex is what makes us special from other animals. So as you can see, this mouse brain is really smooth. There are no folds, and our brain is special because we have a lot of folds. Okay, so now that you've seen a smooth brain, that's a mouse brain, it's much smaller than our big person human brain. But we do not even have the biggest brain in the universe. So for example, if this was like a mouse brain, like the whole top of the mouse brain, and it's not folded or anything and it's smooth, it just only fits this. But if we fold it up and crumple it up, it actually can fit the same amount of cells in a much smaller space. So this is what makes us special as humans. That's what makes you like super smart, creative, intelligent, helps you speak different languages, and really makes people different from other animals. So even though our brain isn't the biggest brain is actually a sperm whale's brain, and the sperm whale's brain weighs about 20 pounds. But our brain inside there weighs about 3 when it's fully grown. And your brain is about 80% its official full-grown size by the time you're 2 years old. So we don't have the biggest brain, but we do actually have the most neurons in our brain. And neurons are these little cells that are all over our brain. Our brain is made up of neurons, and they help make us smart. They help us learn things and process information and make memories, and that is what makes people special, and it's what makes us more intelligent and have the ability of language to the capacity that we do more than any other animal. So there's a lot of things, as I said, inside the brain that you don't see here in your brain cap. But one of the important parts of the brain are actually called the ventricles. And the ventricles are these little balloons inside the brain that make your cerebral spinal fluid. It's the fluid, it's like water. And it actually is all around your brain inside your head. So your head inside your skull is this liquid that surrounds your brain, and your brain is like floating. So as I do this, my brain is like moving with my head. And that is very important. So we could look up why that's important, but I think it'd be more fun to do an experiment. So let's do an experiment. This is part of what I do in lab every day. I make a question. So my question is, why would the cerebral spinal fluid around the brain be important? Why is it there? I want to know. So let's do an experiment to see if we can answer that question. So first you have to make a hypothesis. A hypothesis is like what you think the answer or the outcome is. And so I think, why don't you tell me what you think first? Does anybody have any suggestions? Why would fluid around your brain be important or help you or protect your head, your brain? I think it might be like a cushion, like a pillow, but like keep it safe in there, because as I move, it moves. And that might help keep it from getting hurt, even like when I fall, not just when I'm talking. So I think we should do an experiment. So first, I have an egg. And the egg is going to act as our brain. And this container is going to be our very hard skull on the outside. And if there was no liquid or no fluid, this thing would just roll around in here. And that muscle would be in contact with that very hard bone right there. And if you were to ever fall, it would break. It would hurt. I think your brain would hurt. So we're going to try it, and we're going to drop it and see what happens. And then we're going to add water inside of it and see what happens. All right, so here we go. We have our egg, which is acting like our brain, inside this Tupperware container, which is like the hard part of your skull. And the liquid in there is like the cerebral spinal fluid that surrounds your brain. And we're going to see what happens if I drop it. So dropping it is kind of like if you're falling and you're hitting your head on the ground what is going to happen to your brain? Do you think it's going to be protected, or is it going to crack? Well, not a very good experiment. All right, well, the bottom part of my Tupperware container broke. That would be like your skull cracking. And only the egg cracked just a little bit. But if we dump out all the water, and we don't have any cerebral spinal fluid, and we have the egg in it, and I drop it again, the egg broke. Very broken egg. That would be your brain. So your brain is definitely protected by having the water surrounding your brain inside your skull. As you can see, your brain / egg was much more protected with the water surrounding it than just the skull without the water. So your ventricles are very important in making this fluid that helps keep your brain safer than without it. But this is also why they tell you to wear a helmet when you go biking or playing outside on your scooter, because this helps protect your skull, which is helping to protect your brain. Okay, so from that experiment, you can tell that whatever is exposed first, your skull, your head, your skin, when you get hurt, that's what's going to get injured first. So in that experiment, my Tupperware container broke, which I didn't expect to happen. And but the egg only had a little crack, and it's probably because of that water surrounding the egg giving it some stability. So that's why your cerebral spinal fluid in your head is important. And when I took out the liquid, when I took out the water and I dropped it again on the good side that was not broken, the whole egg actually cracked. And that just helps shows you that your brain is protected, very protected actually, inside your head, inside the water bubble. And that's because your brain is really important for your body. If your brain gets hurt, if your head gets hurt, if you fall and hit your head, or if you get hurt while you're in the military, while you are out protecting our country and something happens and you hurt your head, your injury can really affect you and the way you function. So it might affect the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you process information. Having a head injury can affect everything about yourself. So that is why we research brain injuries and the impact of them at the VA hospital. I really enjoy what I do. That little experiment, even if it didn't go quite the way as planned, is really a small little clip of what I do during the day. So during the day, I ask a question. We come up with experiments to help answer those questions, and I do them. I perform the experiments, I collect the information, and I create an answer from what I learn from my experiment. And so that's what I love to do. If you think you would like to do it too, then it's very important for you to pay attention when you're in school and in science class and come up with great questions and find ways that you can answer them. Find experiments that you can do to help answer your questions, because if you want to have a future in research, that is a huge part of it. So I also wanted to put in here, part of what I do at work is using a microscope. And I don't know if you've ever seen a microscope, but a microscope helps you look at really teeny tiny things. And I take pictures of those cells we were talking about, the neurons in your head. And microscopy is a big part of my job in taking pictures. So if you think that you like photography and you like taking pictures, you can actually do really cool science stuff using that skill. And it can be bigger than just, taking pictures of people and birds and things. Taking pictures using microscopy can really answer scientific questions. So let me show you what I do there. So once I take little pieces of the brain and I want to look at it, I come onto the microscope. So this is one of our microscopes, which look at really teeny tiny things. We look at cells, and cells are what make up all the organs in your body. And I look at neurons and these little specks here. All these little specks here are called synapses, and that is what helps create all of your memories. Okay, so now you have seen all the cool things about your brain, how it helps make you you, and why it's important to keep it safe, and what we do in research in neurology, and maybe why you would want to be a part of neurology research too. So just so you know, if you want to come be a neurologist, a researcher, research really anything, not just neurology about the brain, what I had to do is I had to go to school. So I graduated high school and then I went to college, and I went to a 4-year college and I got a bachelor's degree in biology. And I had a lot of research internships as an undergraduate researcher. So I went and I was a part of many different research projects at different schools and institutions. And I learned really how to ask good questions, how to collect data, how to do real experiments in the lab, and how to create results or answers from all of that and answer those questions that we had. So if you think that that's something that you would like to do, that's something that would be in your future, going to college for 4 years and maybe getting a biology degree and working at maybe a hospital or a research institute as well. So I heard from Ms. Schwab that you guys had some questions. One is, what makes your brain smart? And your brain gets smart by learning new things, new skills, remembering them, being able to recall and apply them to new things. The more that you learn new things, it really helps map your mind and challenge your mind and helps you have great memory. That's really what makes you smart, is learning new things and being able to remember them and being able to apply them. So the more often that you do this, you learn things, you remember them, and you apply them, the smarter you get, and the faster those connections between those cells, those neurons in your head get. Those connections get faster, and that's really what makes you smarter. That's also why they say like reading can make you smarter, because the more you read, the more words you learn, and that's your vocabulary. So the bigger your vocabulary is, the more words you know, the bigger your language skills are, and you can express yourself in so many more ways. All of those things help make your brain smart. What is your memory? Your memory is like a little message. Let's say I have one message here, pair of scissors. I have a message from one cell in my eyeball. My eyeball is collecting information because I'm seeing something. So I'm creating a memory about making this video and telling you guys how awesome research is and why I love it, why I have so much fun. And I remember watching myself do this video. So I have this little message, and it goes from one neuron, and it passes through over to the other neuron, and it passes through to another neuron, and it goes all the way to the back of your head into an area called the hippocampus. And in the hippocampus, in the middle of your head, is where you really condense and save these memories, these messages. You save them there. It's kind of like a little mail center where those little messages are condensed, they're remembered, and you can recall them. So this goes in with what makes you smart. The better your memory is, the more you're going to remember things that you learned or new skills that you learned. And so the more that you do that, the better your memory is going to be and the smarter you are going to get. The last question I have is, when does your brain grow? So your brain grows ever since you were a little baby inside your mom, And when you are about 2 years old, your brain is almost 80% of the size it should be. So if you're 2 and your brain is this big, and let's say when you're 10, your brain is this big, it's about 80% all the way there. So even when you are 2, your brain is 80% the size that it should be when it's fully grown, but you aren't as smart as you'll ever be. So remember how we talked about how your brain is 3 pounds when it's fully grown, but it's not the biggest brain. And the biggest brain is the sperm whale, that's 20 pounds, but you're way smarter than the sperm whale because you have 15 billion neurons, those cells that make you super smart. And they're packed in there all because of these little folds in your cortex. And you have so many of these smart cells inside your head. So your brain actually, even though it's not growing so much, like getting larger by the time you're 10-ish, your brain keeps developing. It keeps changing. By the time you're 25, actually, 25, your brain keeps changing. And what that means is that your networks of your brain keep evolving. They keep, you keep getting more networks in between cells, and the way that you think changes, and the way you make decisions, they change and they get better. You make better decisions as you get older. So your brain changes even from when you're a little kid to a teenager until an adult, even though the size of your brain doesn't change a whole lot. So I hope today you learned how awesome your brain is, and to put on your thinking caps and come up with some great questions and some great experiments to answer those questions. So I love talking to you guys today. I hope you know why research is so cool and why you might want to be a part of it in your future too. Okay? It was great to talk to you guys today. I hope you love learning about it. I'll see you later. Bye.